Hey, get our camera straight. Good. All right. Live. Hey, everybody. More light up in here. Welcome to the studio. Back. Uh, I just went ahead and decided to go live now. Usually we do 3 o'clock, but hey, man, I'm here. You're here. I'd like to have a little bit more time in the spring nature of things. Got everything straight. The camera's good. All right. Cool. Yeah. Setup's pretty much like anyone else YouTuber. We're not all $10,000 studios. We're all good though. All right. So today, this episode is going to be kind of interesting. Um, yes, I do use a script, but I like to give a lot of room for ad lib and add my own stories so that it's not just a script. It's actually my actual life going on here in Japan. And as you know, a little bit of English help for all of our students out there. Anyway, it's good to see you. Um, let's see. It's now spring officially, especially spring in Japan. It became spring on the 20th, which was yesterday here. So today, though, we're going to be taking a look at some things. The messy, funny, confusing reality of everyday life in Japan for some people. For myself, it's not always easy, of course, but it has been delightful. It's been a delightful run up until now, over 20 years. Pretty cool. Um, let's see. Um, as you figured it out, Japan life isn't always about just memorizing words and going to Japanese classes. Although those do help, and they make a lot of really cool stories to tell. As I told one recently, but there's a lot to you know, getting into living here in Japan. Okay, and so we'll just go into a little bit of that and some of the psychology that goes into that. There's a there's a there's a deep science to being able to make it here. I'll show you what that is actually. Um, so we're gonna have 4 segments again, just like always, and we're gonna jump into our first segment, which is beyond the honeymoon phase. Now, um, beyond the honeymoon phase, what is that? Well, if any of you are married, you understand what a honeymoon is, right? You have that time right after you get married, and you go off on a nice vacation. You go to Guam, you go to Bali, you go to Hawaii. You know, uh, gosh, you go to some Caribbean island. You have a wonderful time under the sun, enjoying daiquiris and enjoying wonderful sunsets and sunrises together. You know, and that lasts for I don't know 3 days to a week. Depending on how much money you got in the bank. But then you get back and hello, it's real life. Okay, and that is what we're talking about right now. So, from my perspective, from coming to Japan, my honeymoon was a little bit longer than that, but it lasted a while. You come, you're in Japan, you're fresh on the job. You just got your first job. Everything's great. It's wonderful. It's new. You meet some new people. You get some new friends. You're out in town. You're doing your thing, and you know, and then sooner or later you decide that you want to stay here and you want to live here. And you're committed. You just say, I'm going to do it. And you put in all that hard work and you come here, and then let's say. I'm kind of going on and on about this, aren't I? But you have this initial time before you've really planted your feet, and then and for us that's a good way to define it. The honeymoon phase for an immigrant or an expat to Japan would be the time before they have committed themselves to staying here in Japan. So that's like the honeymoon phase, okay? And it's a lovely time. It's a wonderful time to make friends, to find out, to discover, and it's a wonderful time actually. And and during this time, is a lot of the time in this period of time is when we tend to break some of the rules we don't know we're breaking. Uh, not taking off your shoes when you're supposed to take them off and stuff like this, and interjecting when we're not really supposed to be interjecting in conversations with Japanese people, or sharing our two thoughts when our two thoughts really aren't welcome at certain times, stuff like that. These little things that we think aren't very, don't mean too much to Westerners, but the Japanese are a big deal. And if you're not careful, you can wreck your stay here in Japan by doing that. If you're not careful, you can miss out on some business opportunities. You can miss out on making some friends, some inroads into society. You can miss out if you're not careful. So, I can't tell you not to, though, right? That's one thing. You can't spoil someone's adventure in Japan without them falling down and getting back up. So I'm just saying, from my standpoint, that's what I realized was going on. But during this feeling out process, um, you find out a lot of things. What you like, what you don't like. For example, I realized that I didn't like to eat fish eyes. I just wasn't my thing. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know it was a big thing in Japan. To be honest, I got a story to tell. A real nice guy. He invites me over to his house, and he says this is during my honeymoon phase. He invites me over to his house to have what they say nabe, and this is the delicious soup, boiled meat, and some vegetables, and a delicious broth, is what I understood it to be at the time. But I didn't know that there are different kinds of nabe. I didn't know that. Okay, so I come over to this guy's house. We're eating nabe. We're eating this what looks to be a delicious food, and I'm just got my fork in the soup there in the soup, and boom, out comes an eyeball of a fish, and I'm like, oh my god, what is that, right? So, and I don't scream, but it was a bit of a surprise to say the least. That was my first experience I had with an eyeball, and the guy was not shameful. He didn't care. He was welcome to show me how it's done. He just grabbed that bad boy, put it right in his mouth, and his wife is like, "Don't do that in front of the to the poor boy." He's freaking him out. But I was part of it. I was part of it. The other time I dealt with fish eyeballs was when I was at a school. This is a lot more fun to think about because I had to endure. I was at an elementary school, and it was lunchtime, and they served up this lunch to me. It looked delicious because I was always into, I'll try anything, and the kids are eating it. Of course, I'm going to eat it. And so they serve up the lunch food, and I'm looking at the food here. It looks delicious, and I'm looking at what I think is rice with pepper on it. And I get closer to this rice peppered rice, excuse me, and I realize it's little fish with eyeballs in it. Oh my God! Once again, I'm blown away. But in this case, I could not get around it. I had to endure it because the kids are eating it. You better eat it too. So I learned to eat that fish with eyes in it, and I got over it. And you know what? It's a tremendous, wonderful source of calcium. And to this day, I eat it on my rice, and it's not a problem at all. But at that time, I believe it's called krill in English. I think it's krill. It's a small fish. Whales love it, but humans have. I was taken aback by it, but it's fine. It's really delicious. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Its texture isn't strange or nothing like that. But to me, it was a shock because I'm from California. I hadn't eaten it before, and that's what it was. That was my feeling out phase. Now I could have really blown it. I could have really blown it. I could have made a scene. I'm fortunate that I didn't. I was down to earth and willing to try anything. But that was my my honeymoon part of my honeymoon phase, and those are some interesting times when you're just discovering things like what you like and what you don't like, and just an interesting time of getting integrating or acclimatizing to living in Japan. It's quite a wonderful time, and I hope if you come here that you take the time to enjoy it, and don't be afraid of it. Don't freak out. Don't make a scene. Just to, get through it, enjoy it, and discover what you like and what you don't like. And the Japanese are accommodating. They'll get a good laugh out of it too, and so will you one day. One day. Okay, moving on to our second segment today. The science of the science. I don't know why did I name it the science of resilience or just bouncing back. Okay, bouncing back. Now, what is that? What are we talking about? Well, basically, um, and here we go to another area here. It's almost going to be dark because these are times in Japan where, and I think it's really connected with life all in general. But because I don't think that you can escape these phases in anywhere where you are, wherever you are in the world, you have to face these things. But I'm in Japan, so this is where I faced it. But it's just that point of when you meet the wall, I could call it. Like you've done all you can do, you've worked, you've done as many interviews as possible, or you have done all you can to create a situation for yourself where you are in a good position, and you find that you just hit that limit, um, in your work site or whatever. You just met that language barrier. For me, it was the language barrier. Like you could speak so much, but then you just couldn't get past, that certain understanding that the Japanese want you to have. And you just it can be very debilitating. It can be very depressing at the time. But I'll tell you something. This is the reason I made this a segment about bouncing back, because this is something very, very, I think, very special about Japan and the Japanese in general. The Japanese really, really appreciate someone who will fall down and get back up and keep going. Let me tell you, that will get you further in Japan than any other trait you can possibly have. If you can, once you fall down, get up and keep going, and every day you keep doing that every day, you just you say something foolish, you make an idiot of yourself, whatever, you get back up, you come back the next day, you just keep on going. I'm not saying be foolish on purpose. I'm just saying, but when you fall down, you get back up and you keep going. The Japanese really admire that. They really respect it, and what's one of the traits that they respect above all other traits is the ability for you to just keep going, and that will get you further in this place than many other traits will. And perhaps there are, and I'll be humble about this. I am not like some genius person who went to Harvard or something like that, and I'm a master at this or that or something like this. I just I had to fall and get up many times, and I thought many times, you know, Japanese people around me were like, "Oh, this guy," but no, they kept encouraging me and kept encouraging me on the job or wherever it is, and I kept at it until I was able to master the trade or master the technique or the study or whatever it might have been, or the skill. And it just made the environment better. It made a situation where perfection wasn't exactly what they were looking for. They were looking for, are you able to keep going? Who wants someone who's going to crumble as soon as they can't do something? And I think humility is something that the Japanese really respect in foreigners. And please remember that. You know, pride is wonderful. I mean, well, I'm not going to say pride is wonderful, but I mean, um, because of my, because of how I walk my life. But you know, um, the Japanese, of course, to be proud of what you do, to have a sense of pride in your work and stuff like this. Of course, this is very important. You should have this, of course, but the ability to, once you fall, to get back up, it's something the Japanese will always remember, and they'll make a note, when they think of you about that stuff. And they'll call on you time and time again. They won't give up on you if you don't give up on yourself. And that seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, a very fundamental aspect of being an adult in the world. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the way it should be everywhere in the world. But um, in Japan, particularly, I've realized that, and I'm very thankful and very grateful to everyone around me for being patient with me with that. So yeah, the art of the I should call it the art of bouncing back and getting back up and not giving up. That's something that is something you will definitely, if you have this trait, it will definitely be a benefit to you in Japan. Um, you know, and I guess it would take I guess it's beneficial to understand that, we'll look at some practical understanding of this. Um, if you see every mistake as proof that you're bad at this, then you stop growing. Okay, and so, um, I think that's something that the Japanese are looking to see. Do you think you're just bad, you can't do it, because you didn't start this job first, something like that. Maybe they're looking for that. I don't know. I'm not, I can't, I'm not reading anyone's mind, but I do know as a principle, if you think every mistake is a proof that you're bad at this, then you stop growing. But if you understand that what's happening in your brain, how stress and learning and adaptation work, then you realize the moments that you are not making the right decision all the time. There's a little rewiring that's going on in you that's it's preparing you for success. And I think that's something that the Japanese see. They see a person who starts to struggle and stress and think and kind of like, I don't know, get that knot in their stomach. That person is actually growing. Maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe they can see that, and we don't. We're just like, oh, I'm a failure. I messed up. But they don't. They see something else, and that's why they don't give up on you. And that could be something. I'm not a master at what's going on in a Japanese person's mind, but I think maybe that's what they see, and that's why they don't give up on you or me. um, so it's important to keep that mindset as you live here in Japan, because you're not going to be perfect no matter where you are, no matter what you do, anyways. So you might as well have that mindset and be ready to adapt. Um, let's see. And that kind of okay. So that brings us actually to a few different phrases that can help you, um, express yourself in these times that aren't negative, you know, but are honest. Okay. So one phrase you can say, we can say, um, is what the teething phase or the teething problems, right? These are early difficulties with something new. Okay. These are all issues that we're dealing with now. So teething problems. So you can say, I'm going through some teething problems. I say, what's the matter, man? What's going on? I'm going through some teething problems here in Japan. Um, yes. To find one's footing. Yeah. That's the beginning when you're first here, when you're first time on the job, when you're first time in the country, whatever. To find one's footing, to find one's footing. That's important. And then, a very common one, to take it all in stride, so that's what we were talking about. When you just fall down, you get back up and you just keep going. That's taking it in stride. And I think the Japanese people see that, and they appreciate it, because you think again, if you think a little bit more about this, how competitive Japan is, and how competitive the Japanese are with themselves. To fall down is like almost the end of the world for them. So to see somebody fall down, get back up, and keep going, that's like an inspiration to them. So I can imagine, again, there's another point to make. A lot of times they can't do that. There's so much pride and so much on the line that to fall down is to be down forever. And so when they see somebody get back up, that's amazing to them. Could be. I don't want to make any assumptions. Okay, so um, I think we actually flooded into segment 3 already, so we're already in segment 3, and so now we're going to transition to our finale, our finale or whatnot, and then we'll go into our words, our actual words that I had prepared for you. Um, we're going to talk about something called, something that I think is a lot of a lot of immigrants into Japan or expats in Japan. I think something we all kind of struggle with. I've I've seen so many so many segments on this about coming to Japan and integrating. And I just this last segment is it's a shout out to all my friends. I understand to all my the people out there. I understand, your the issues that plague immigrants and expats and how they feel about integrating in Japan. And my take on this it might be a little different. I haven't heard it before, but I truly do feel this way. Um, how to integrate. Um, this is from it's a personal standpoint, my personal standpoint. Don't You're not going to find this in a book or something like this. Um, but my take is listen carefully. This is very honest. I was afraid to say it. Okay. Integration through vulnerability. Okay. Integration through vulnerability. And I just know that my fellow Americans out there and anybody with, I don't know, a sense of high pride and just, hold themselves to such a high standard and believe that they own the world as long as if they just all they got to do is such and such and they own everything or they run the show. It's not going to sit well with them, I guess. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But it could be like not seen so in such a good light. But to be honest with you, from my standpoint, from just a normal guy coming up, uh, integration through vulnerability has been an aspect has been a pathway for me, because I have understood that you know integration or just getting along with everyone. And what I mean by integration is simply just getting along and being able to have a conversation and you know be thought of as someone who you can talk to deal with day-to-day situations in life here in Japan is just to realize that you know mm, realize that you're not perfect. um Nobody's perfect, actually. I've met some people that were pretty close here in Japan, pretty close. I never saw them make a mistake, but um, I realized that I myself I'm not perfect, and I realized that a while ago. But um, integration actually happens when you are humble and you understand that you don't have all the answers, and that you cede to you know the person to your left or your right who might know the answer. And since obviously I'm the minority and I'm surrounded by Japanese people. Obviously, I'm ceding to another Japanese person to let them know, you probably got the answer before I got it. You lived here, you're born here, you probably know what to do. And that's one of the keys to integrating in Japan. And you know, this can actually be expanded to, I haven't mentioned it, but in your neighborhood. Maybe there's somebody out there who's living here is wondering, how in the world am I going to get along with the people in my neighborhood? You almost get on the border of being frustrated. I've been there too. But it comes with understanding that you don't know all the rules. You weren't born here. You're not even a majority or a minority. What in the world could you possibly know, that would be so phenomenal that would, make it look like you should, be part of what's going on there. You just think it's a natural thing. It's not a natural thing. You know, um, Japan is it's a place that usually has one race in it. It's getting different more. It's more multicultural now, but still there are huge pockets where there's nothing but Japanese people, and they hardly ever see a foreigner. So, say you end up moving into a place, and it's just a sensitive subject. I won't lie; it's a sensitive topic. I get it. I understand. But let's say you move into a neighborhood or you move into an apartment block complex in wherever you are, Tokyo, Osaka, one of the bigger cities, Fukuoka, say here in Hiroshima or whatever, and you end up in a town, you end up in a complex where everyone's Japanese and you're only foreigner, and you just think everything's supposed to be good to go. Like you're just supposed to get along with everybody, and it doesn't happen, and you wonder what happened. The first thing to realize is that they don't know you just like anybody else. They don't know you. They don't know where you're from. They don't know anything about you. And it's tough for them to get along with themselves. So what are you doing? So be humble, be understanding of this situation. Learn, understand the society. Read a good book about Japanese society. There are lots of them out there, put out by publishers and things. And um, I think there's one of them called the Japanese Mind. It was put out by there's a study put out by, I believe it was Stanford. I could be wrong. Talked about that, and you should really just um, you know go into understanding the sociology of the Japanese people, and but understand yourself first. That's for me. It was all about me learning about myself before I could ever think of being able to get along with anybody else. So yeah, know yourself, and then you can know people around you. That's just a basic, you know, sociology 101 thing. And then realize that, you know, you're you're you could be seen as a stranger to them, and so you need to be very humble and understanding that they've been here longer than you, and give it time. Like I've said it other times before, be patient, but yeah, and that makes you, there you go. And now we come back to the uh, the core of this whole thing, and that makes us vulnerable, right? It makes us vulnerable to think that we got to do that. Makes us vulnerable, but that's when the Japanese see that you're allowing yourself to be that way. That's when they'll come and invite you in. When they see that you're actually willing to be vulnerable, they'll invite you in. You'll make friends and things like that. Now there are other avenues. People come from all walks of life. People come through all walks of life and come through all venues. People come through professions, stuff like that. It could be completely different for you. But that's from my standpoint. That's from the guy on the ground. That's just from my standpoint. Integration through vulnerability. I think that for me, that has been the way that I've been able to come into this place and be have peace and have those harmonious times in Japanese society. And it's been worth it the entire time. I wouldn't change a thing. Um, yeah. So, that was so deep. Okay. All right. Um, and that when you come to that place that you when you come to that place of vulnerability, to be honest, um, that's when you can call the place home. Obviously, I think that's a fair assessment. I think when you come to be able to be vulnerable in a place, or you're willing to be vulnerable, then you can call the place home. And that's when you can call Japan your home. But not until that time, you're going to have a real tough time, I think. Um, if you have any comments on it, please comment below. Let me know what you think. So now let's get to some vocabulary for all my friends out there. You know who you are. Um, Once again, I won't repeat anything. I will add, though, from the last ones. Social friction. Social friction. This has to do with things. Okay, small misunderstandings caused by cultural differences. Okay, that could be a thing. Like, why do I have to bow? Why do I have to take my shoes off? You know. Why do I have to wait so long? These things, they're just instances, but they can cause social friction. And to be able to identify it is a very good thing for you, for your mind, okay, for your heart. It's a very good thing. When you can say, oh, this is social friction. Okay. Let me slow down and think about this for a while. And by the time you've done it, everything will be cool. Let me tell you, because I've waited in line before, not wondering why I was waiting in line so long. And I just realized that that's what was going on with me. I was having social friction, not understanding that the etiquette and things like this, all the stuff takes time. And in time, I thought about it. And by the time that happened, I was through the line doing what I had to do. Um, yes, one of the. We'll finish on this one. To lose face. Oh my goodness. To lose face, something that nobody wants to do. To feel embarrassed or lose respect. No one likes this. No one wants it to happen to them, right? I'd, for example, I'd worried I'd lose face after my mistake, but everyone was kind. And this is the part where we go back to vulnerability. When you in a situation where you could lose face, but you 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 stand there anyways and you take it, and people will rally around you for that most of the time. So yeah, that's that's something. Um, uh, real quick story. I remember when I moved. I had to move to the city, and in Japan, if you at the time, if you don't have a guarantor, you can have as much money as you need for the apartment. But if you don't have a guarantor, you can't rent an apartment, you know, or a house for that matter. House and apartment doesn't matter. You can't rent anything without a guarantor. Okay. And I had the money, not a problem. I was good. Happened to be in a very good place that time. And so, but I could not get an apartment. Okay. And I was so embarrassed to ask anyone for help. I remember I was so embarrassed. I just sat there next to the apartment company, the real estate company, and I didn't know what to do. I said, I have the money, but I can't get an apartment. What am I going to do? I'm going to get kicked out of the apartment because it's just like a contract. After the contract, you got to re-up it, and it's very expensive. And you're like, why go through? Why pay all that money? You can move somewhere else. It's nicer. So you try to get out there, find something new. Find out you hit a wall. Boom. I felt so embarrassed and so vulnerable. But instead of just like caving in, running home, running to America, or calling somebody from the States or something, I called a teacher at school and asked them to help me out with that, and they did. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever experienced. I didn't think they were going to. I thought they were going to like give me the number to the embassy or something. But no, they they actually came down and they said, okay, no problem, and they did it. They signed as the guarantor, and I pay the nice man his money at the real estate company, and they let me go to an apartment, and I lived there for a good 3 months before I moved someplace where they didn't require it. Man, if I hadn't been vulnerable, if I hadn't been humble and asked somebody for help, oh my gosh, what would have happened? I don't know. Okay, so yeah, um, yeah, to lose face, to think, oh, if I call somebody, they're gonna know, I don't have what it takes. I don't have the connections that I thought I had. But don't worry, I didn't worry. I didn't worry about that. I stopped worrying about that. I put my big boy pants on, is what they call it, and I called somebody, asked them for help, and I got help. And today, I understand what that meant. Put on your big boy pants and freaking do what you got to do. But in time, that's what it becomes. That's the process. But at the time, man, I felt like I was really losing face. I was, oh my gosh. But the Japanese appreciated that, and it turned into a good situation for me, and is to this day, honestly. Um, it was a seed to become something else greater. So yeah. So to summarize everything, let's see. Um, Basically, this is a living in Japan is a long term long term lesson in patience and humility, and the days that feel most awkward and vulnerable, you feel most awkward and vulnerable, are actually the days that you're learning the most. That is so true. You have no idea. And that's what it's like to live here in Japan. It's to have awkward days, to feel vulnerable, to not know what's going to happen, but actually to be learning and be to be turning into something better than what you were before. And you can't show that to everybody. No one's gonna, not everyone's going to see that progress, but you know it's happening inside of you. And eventually, other people will see it. Um, yeah, it's truly it's a thousand tiny steps. It's a thousand tiny steps. Many of them uncomfortable, but all of them all of them are very very meaningful for yourself, more important, most importantly, but will also bear fruit for those around you. Okay. And you're living here in Japan, but I've got a small suspicion that some of these principles actually work wherever we are living, right? I think so. So, uh, I hope that helps. And then for our students as well. In the classroom, I'm pretty sure these principles work in the classroom too. If I'm not mistaken. And so, our next episode, we will cover some other things about living in Japan, and also some interesting English that integrates into those things. So I hope you enjoyed this cast. Of course, I'll be back, um, and I can't wait to see you again. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Also, be sure to check us out. We're also on Instagram. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and I hope to see you there too. Okay, so until then, take care of yourself and take care of other people. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to feel awkward. That's an excellent time to become a better person. Okay. All right. Till then, take care. Bye bye.